It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome back to the Douglas Coleman Show, Steve Barry. Hi, Steve. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
We looked it up. You were on 11 months ago, and you were promoting Cotton Malone. So would that have been, I'm looking at your bio, it says that this one, the Medici Return, is the 19th book in this series. So you would have been promoting the 18th book at that point?
I would have. That would have been the Atlas maneuver. We were on talking about that.
Okay. All right, great. So how long has it taken you to do all 19 of these? Do you do one a year, or do you do more than that?
I do. No, I do one a year, and so it's been one every year for the last 19 years.
Okay.
So, and then I have 5 standalone books and a couple of Luke Daniels thrillers. So there's been a total of about 27 novels total.
Oh, 27 published novels?
That's correct. 27 out there right now.
Do you have any that are not published?
I have one manuscript. The very first manuscript I ever wrote is still sitting here. It's not where I would let anyone read it. It's a great story. It's just told terribly. I might rewrite it one day. You never know.
I was wondering if the first book that you had published, the one that sort of put you on the map, which book would that be?
That would have been The Amber Room, was my first published novel, which was the 4th manuscript I ever wrote, but it was the first to ever be published in 2003.
Okay. Just curious, if you were to go back and read that now, would you read it in a different light, in the sense that you'd say, oh, that was right? Or would you be very particular and say, oh, no, I should have changed that, or I should have done that? Or
no, I could. If I could go back in that manuscript now, I could probably take 5,000 words out of it easy. I could probably, that manuscript was about 120,000, 117,000, 118,000 words. I could take 5,000 words out of it easy, because I've learned how to write a little tighter, a little cleaner, a little smoother. So yeah, if I could get my hands on it again, I could polish it down a little bit, yeah, and get it a little tighter. But all in all, I like the story. It's a good story, and it's told well. To a lot of people, that's their favorite book of mine, is The Amber Room. So I wouldn't change anything in it, but I would edit it a little bit.
I'm looking also at your Wikipedia bio, and it said it took you 12 years and 85 rejections.
12 years, 85 rejections over 5 different manuscripts before I was actually published. So it was a very long process for me to go from starting writing to being a published writer. Very long. But it's not an atypical journey. A lot of writers take a similar journey.
Well, back then there wasn't any such thing as self-publishing, was there?
Oh, no, not at all. Back then, if you were going to publish, you had to go through a New York publishing house. That was in the 90s. And you went through a New York publishing house, and you wrote a book a year, or you wrote a book every 2 years. You didn't do multiple books in a year. No, that was unheard of. There was no e-books then. There was no Amazon then. Books were sold in bookstores then. It was a whole different world. Frankly, I miss that world. I liked that world. It was a great world. This is one of the few times where going back to the way it was would be kind of fun to have back again. But unfortunately, those days are gone forever.
Did you have an agent representing you, or were you doing this on your own?
I did. No, and I was lucky enough to get an agent. It was amazing. I sent out 400 queries and only got a handful back that showed any interest, and one took me, a lady in New Orleans. And she took me, and she stayed with me during those 12 years and those 85 rejections. She was there for every single one of them. And so she was there the day we sold it, too.
Well, one of the comments that I get from other successful writers is that it's almost as hard to sell the agent as it is the publisher. So it's like you go through the whole process twice.
Oh, God, yeah. It's actually harder to get an agent than it is to get a publisher. It's very difficult to get an agent. It's extremely difficult to get one. And you do. They have to believe in it. They have to see something in that story. Why she stuck with me over 85 rejections is a good question. I asked her that years later. And she told me that she just thought that one day I was going to make it. She said, I just had a feeling that you were going to make it, and so I stayed. She should have dumped me a long time ago after the 30th rejection or the 40th or the 50th or even the 70th, but she didn't. She stayed there, and it eventually paid off for her. She gets 15% of the first 13 books that I publish for the rest forever.
Your story is similar to David Baldacci, who's been on this show 5 times now, in the sense that you both came from a lawyer background. And I think he said that it took him 15 years before he got on the map with absolute power.
Yeah, he went through I know David, and he went through a similar process to get published. He was a little more fortunate than I was because his first book was bought by Clint Eastwood to make a movie out of it, which really helped a lot. And it sort of, his first book catapulted him up into the stratosphere. I didn't really get a kick up into that level until the 4th book, The Templar Legacy, when I introduced Cotton Malone. That was my breakout book. That was the book that kind of kicked me up there. So it took me 4 books to get where David got in 1 book. So he did much better than I did once he got out there.
Well, I think having Clint Eastwood behind you probably didn't hurt either.
Oh, it didn't hurt that he sold the movie rights there. That worked out perfect for him. Everything went really well for David. He's a great writer. He's a great friend, and he does a super job. He's earned. He writes 2 books a year right now, and he writes every word, and he works very hard.
So give us a little overview of Cotton Malone. I think we might have touched on this on the last interview, but for people that didn't see
he's a retired Justice Department agent. He lives in Copenhagen. He runs an old bookshop, which is his interest. He loves books. And he keeps getting drawn back into his former profession and his former life and kind of stays in trouble. He doesn't do that, though, haphazardly. He'll do it if his ex-boss asks him to help. He'll do it if his girlfriend, Cassiopeia, needs him. He'll do it if his son's in trouble. There has to be some type of very deep motivation to bring him away from his bookshop. But he does get pulled away, and in this book he gets pulled away to help Stephanie out with a favor, and gets drawn into a much deeper and darker mystery that dates back 500 years. And so something that starts off very simple becomes very complex for Cotton.
Well, so I'm just looking at sort of the overview. It has to do, it's the 1500s in the Vatican.
It's Pope Julius II was regarded as the warrior pope because he fought a lot of wars. He's at the end of his life, and he's bankrupted the Vatican, and that's historical fact. That actually did happen. He wants to restore the treasury before he dies, so he makes a loan from the Medici, the great Medici family, the great bankers of Europe, and he gives them, as collateral for the loan, a signed, written promise by the Pope, sworn to God, that the debt would be paid back. Unfortunately, it's not, and 500 years goes by, and the debt is still out there, but you need a Medici to collect it. So Cotton Malone is on the hunt for not only that document, but for the last Medici as well. And who's going to be the next prime minister of Italy and who's going to be the next pope both hang in the balance of what he's doing. So that's kind of the Medici Return in a nutshell. You're going to get a good run through Tuscany. You're going to see Florence. You're going to see the city of Siena. You're going to see the famed Palio horse race, in which Cotton actually jockeys a horse in. It's a lot of fun. It's an interesting part of the world with some very interesting history. I think the readers are going to like it.
How do you do research for this? Is it all online?
No, I go there.
Oh, you go there.
I go to the places. I go there and I look at the locales, and I buy every book I can get my hands on. I bought about 200 when I was there. I come back home and I get more books. I use 300 to 400 when I'm writing a novel. So I go through all of those. I don't read 300 to 400 books, but I do read large chunks of 300 to 400 books. And when I'm done, I've got notes about 6 inches tall, and those are what I use to write the book with months later when I get ready to write it and to put it together. So the research process is a very long 18-month process that goes along with the 12 months of writing.
Now, is that for every one of his books? I mean, is he going to...
Oh, yeah, everyone. Yeah, everyone's the same because These are usually subjects I don't know a lot about, and I've got to go learn a lot about it. This particular book, I knew nothing about Tuscany. I'd never been to Florence before. I didn't know anything about the Palio. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So I had to learn all of that once I got the idea for the novel.
So is he always going back in history?
Well, he's always going to be dealing with something from the past, something real, something that we may not know a lot about, but we want to know more about, that still has relevance today. That's the key. Whatever's in the past, it still has to matter today. So that debt we talked about still matters today because it's going to influence who's going to be the next prime minister of Italy and who's going to be the next pope. So I have to have that so what in the novel. You know, that, okay, so this cool thing from history, so what? I have to have that so what in there. So that has to be as an integral part of the plot.
Well, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is the 19th book. Do you have any idea how many there are going to be? Or are you just going to keep going?
I don't know. I hope they go forever. I really do. I hope. I know there's going to be at least 3 more. So I know that. So it'll be at least 22 of them. Hopefully, I get to keep doing it after that. We take it one contract at a time. Well,
okay. Contract aside, though, do you ever fear that you're going to just run out of ideas?
Well, you always have that fear about, what am I going, where's the next book idea going to come from? And I'm very fatalistic about that. But always, the ideas come. So I've got ideas for the next 4 books. So I'm 4 ahead. And sometime in the next 4 years, I'll get another idea. They kind of come to you. If you go looking for them, you're never going to find them. But if you are in the right place at the right time, it will find you. Just like this book found me when I was over there. And so far, I'm okay. I keep coming up with them, so hopefully I'll get to keep doing it for a while.
Well, you mentioned that the ideas just sort of come to you, and I think a lot of creative artists get that spark when they're doing something entirely different. If they're if they're sitting there trying to type, it doesn't come. But if you go out and mow the lawn, then the story comes. Something like that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Is there anything specific that you do, or you just go about your day and then...
I try to do things that distract me. My best ideas come when I'm traveling because my mind is sort of relaxed and I'm looking at new things and exploring and enjoying it. So your mind is very open to things. And when the idea jumps out, you recognize it very quickly. So most of the ideas for my novels have come during travel. And so I was just recently in New Zealand, and sure enough, there was an idea there hiding, waiting for me, and jumped out and found me. So there'll probably be a New Zealand book one day.
How do you keep the ideas, or so you don't forget about them? Do you write it down, or?
I write them down.
Yeah.
Oh, I write them down. I write everything, every detail, everything I thought about, I write down. And I have a folder, so an idea folder, and they go into the idea folder, so they're there. So that when I'm ready, I just go right to that one folder, and everything's in one place.
Did you ever try using one of those little mini handheld recorders or something and do it by voice?
I use the phone. I use the phone. I talk into the phone, and that's what I do. Yeah. When it comes to me, I get out the phone and I just start talking to it as fast as I can, because I will forget it. And so I do it. And then I go back and write it all down later. But I get it all down as fast as I can, and I did with this. I put 2 pages of notes that I put down that idea, and I've got it all there. And I'll probably write that book in about 3 years from now. I probably will write it. I like the whole idea about it, so it may very well be there.
We got just a couple of minutes, and I wanted to touch on History Matters as a nonprofit that you started with your wife. Tell us a little about that.
I created it. We created it to help communities raise money for historic preservation. There's just no money out there. And you're certainly not going to get it from any government at all. You're going to have to raise it on your own. And so we've helped communities do that. And we do it by going into the community and teach a writer's workshop. It's about a 4-hour workshop. You buy your way in with a contribution. That money goes into a big pot, and that money then goes to the project that we're there to support. We don't charge to come. We don't charge expenses or anything like that. Everything we raise goes to the project. We've raised about $3.5 million for about 80 different projects around the country. We've done all kinds of things. We've done buildings, cemeteries, vacant land, documents, books, flags, posters. We've raised money for all kinds of things. And it's been very gratifying. We hope to keep doing it and keep going and doing it. If anybody out there has a project, they can go to my website, steveberry.org, click on History Matters, and send me an email, and maybe we'll see if we can come help you.
I pronounced it wrong. I said Medici. Is it Medici? Or
it's I got taught that when I was over there. Americans like to say Medici, but the Italians sort of cringe at that, and they said no, it's Medici, it's Medici. So
okay.
I learned to say Medici because that's the way they like to pronounce it. So I think that's probably a more proper way of saying it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go with that. So the Medici.
I got lectured in that while I was there.
The Medici Return, has it been released?
It's out in stores now and in all formats. And you can find out more about that book and all my books at steveberry.org.
steveberry.org. Okay. Well, Steve, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and welcome back for the second time. And best of luck, and look forward to many more.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.